Welcome Mrs. Turnbull, teachers, parents, carers and students. I would like to welcome you to our Anzac service of 2020. Please remove your hats if you are wearing one. Everyone please stand and join with us to sing the national anthem. Please remain standing for the New Zealand national anthem. Please be seated.
The Anzac tradition, which is all about the ideals of courage, determination and nation, was established on the 25th of April 1915 when the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula. It was the start of a campaign that lasted 8 months and resulted in some 25,000 Australian casualties, including 8,700 who were killed or died of wounds or disease.
The men who served on the Gallipoli Peninsula created a legend, adding the word Anzac
to the Australian and New Zealand vocabularies and creating the notion of the Anzac spirit.
In 1916, the first anniversary of the landing was observed in Australia, New Zealand, England, and by troops in Egypt. That year, the 25th of April was officially named Anzac Day by the acting Australian Prime Minister, George Pearce. By the 1920s, Anzac Day ceremonies were held throughout Australia. All states had designated Anzac Day as a public holiday. Commemoration of Anzac Day continued throughout the 1930s and the 1940s, with World War II veterans joining parades around the country.
In the following decades, returned servicemen and women from the conflicts around the world, veterans from allied countries, and peacekeepers in various countries have joined the parades.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below. We are dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields.
Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
On this day above all days, we remember those Australian men and women who died or suffered in the great tragedy of war. On the morning of April the 25th, 1915, Australian and New Zealand troops landed under fire at Gallipoli, and it was then and in the Violet campaign which followed that the Anzac tradition was forged. The elements of the tradition have inspired and offered an enduring example to the later generations of Australians. Each year we pay homage to not only those original Anzacs, but to all who died or were disabled in their service to this country. They enrich our nation's history. Their hope was for the freedom of mankind, and we remember with pride their courage, their compassion, and their comradeship. They served on land and sea and in the air, in many places throughout the world.
Not only do we honour the memory of those Australians who have fallen in battle, we share the sorrow of those who have mourned them and all of who have been the victims of armed conflict. On this day, we remember with sympathy those Australians who have suffered as prisoners of war, and those who have, because of war, have their lives shortened or handicapped. We recall staunch friends and allies, and especially those of the first Anzac Day. May we in our successes prove worthy of their sacrifice.
Today we remember with thanksgiving those who made the supreme sacrifice for us in the time of war. We pray that the offering of their lives may not have been in vain. Today we dedicate ourselves to the cause of justice, freedom and peace, and for the wisdom and strength to build a better world. For thousands of years, rosemary has been regarded as the herb of remembrance. Students in ancient Greece relied on rosemary to stimulate their memories from exams. Ancient Greeks also used rosemary to embalm their dead. Shakespeare wrote, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance. Pray your love, remember." In the 20th century, rosemary came to be recognized as a memento of wartime sacrifice. Sprigs of rosemary are worn on Anzac Day to show that we will never forget those who gave their lives to preserve our freedom.
I would like to call on Isaac and Saffron to step forward and lay the wreath on behalf of all the students at Northgate State School. School representatives, please follow.
the fallen. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Shortly we will hear the last post. The last post historically has been used to signify the end of the day. The last post is played during commemorative ceremonies to serve as a tribute to the people who have died fighting for our country. We will then have 1 minute silence to think about those people as a sign of respect.
Following the minute's silence, we will hear the rouse. It is played to signify waking up to a new day. During the rouse, Jake will raise the flag to full mast. Could everyone please stand? Thank you. Please be seated. I'd now like to introduce Mrs. Turnbull.
Thank you, Zoe, and a very special thank you to our Year 6 students who have come together today to film this Anzac Day ceremony that you can watch now in your homes or on your computer screens or on your phones, wherever you may be during this coronavirus season. Welcome to all of our families who are also joining in to watch this ceremony, and it's great that we can still celebrate or still commemorate Anzac Day even though we are apart, but yet these platforms bring us still together. Anzac Day is a very special time of year, and it's something that we didn't want to allow to go past without us as a school still remembering the incredible sacrifice of our servicemen and women. And days like today, or if you're watching this on Friday, days like tomorrow are not just important for those who have served, but they're important for our whole nation, and especially at this time, because the sacrifices that were made throughout the war periods of our servicemen and women are what's given us the freedom and the courage as a nation, I think, to be able to face the times that we are facing today and in this season of, isolation. And I know for some of you, you've already commented on how timely it is to have Anzac Day in the middle of this isolation period. A few years ago, I had the privilege of visiting the Australian War Memorial in Canberra and seeing my great-great-uncle's name engraved upon the Wall of Remembrance, and that was a really sombering time for me as I learnt about him and his sacrifice. His name was Quinton, and Quinton died at a very young age in World War I. But what really touched me, and I shared a little bit about this last year, what really touched me was Quinton's mother, Jane. And Jane continued to write to the War Memorial for many, many years, seeking a knowledge of her son and what had happened to her in the war. And it took 7 years before she found out, that he had passed away. His body still hasn't been uncovered. But days like Anzac Day help me to remember the sacrifice not just of Quinton, but of that mother. And I always talk about the heart of the mother and the heart of the father who allowed their children to go into war and to sacrifice their lives for our country. So for me, it's a really important day to pause and reflect upon their service. I'd like to also take this moment to make sure we honour the servicemen and women that are currently serving today, and the police, the ambulance, the firefighters who so bravely served recently during the bushfires that were so prevalent in our nation at the start of the year. And I think as we remember our servicemen and women who fought long ago, we also remember those who served today. And if you're watching this and if you are working for the emergency services or on the front line of any of the attacks or the times of hardship we've had in our nation, I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of myself, the staff and the students at our school for what you are doing to support our nation at this time. However you remember Anzac Day, I hope you do take a moment to pause and remember it as a family. We have our family challenge where you can make a wreath together and lay that wreath at your mailbox or at the front of your driveway, and feel free to take a photo, post it to our Northgate State School Learning at Home community Facebook group. It's a closed group that you can post photos to, so we can all still be apart but feel like we're together. And pictures and images and photos really help to support that feeling of connectedness and belonging. So we look forward to seeing those images on Facebook, the Facebook group, the closed Facebook group. If not, send them to your teacher, send them to our admin, just so we can make sure that we're all getting connected as much as we can during this time. Thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of our service.
On behalf of Northgate State School, I would like to thank you, our school community. Thank you for making the time to watch and share this special ceremony with us. Thank you.